Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching PTV World. My name is Sophie. Welcome to a brand new edition of Weekend World. Today we're talking about proactivity and positivity. Yesterday as well, we were talking about the same theme, and even day before we had the same theme. We were talking about a positive Pakistan, a proactive Pakistan. This time around, we've got two esteemed guests over on our show tonight. And as they say, music bridges the gap between people, between institutes, between countries, and fashion is in no way any less than music. Today on the show tonight, we'd like to introduce two very fantastic designers. First up, Assalamu alaikum, Munib Nawaz.
Assalamu alaikum.
Munib Nawaz is basically a fashion designer. He's not just a fashion designer, he's a radio presenter. So Munib, we'd like to welcome you on the show once again. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for a lovely introduction.
Our pleasure. Next up, we have Sahar Atif. And Sahar Atif is sitting pretty. I love her ring. That's the first thing that I actually noticed, and I even mentioned that. She's basically the fashion designer. She's the creative director of Parisa Lawn, Chen One, and the lady behind the label, Sai. So we'd like to welcome you on the show tonight. How are you doing?
Very well, Sophie. Thank you so much.
All right. So, well, first, I would like to congratulate you because you recently participated in the Pakistan London Fashion Week.
Yes.
So tell us about that experience. How was that? Because we saw the collection and it was fantastic.
The collection, basically, I tweaked the BCW collection, and that's what I was invited for. They kept telling me I was going to London for a holiday. They said, bring your collection. And I was fairly done with the season. I wanted to just take it easy, just, put my feet up. But eventually they got back. They said, we have a Western Union sponsorship, so just bring the clothes.
Okay.
So it was something that I think it was the sort of a joint effort between a few people that made me sort of
And it was more spontaneous, and it just happened.
It was very spontaneous. And then the response, I think the Western market is very digital media friendly. So we ended up having a lot of mileage out of that collection because clients abroad tend to shop online.
That's true.
The response has been phenomenal.
Wonderful. So we want to know how the creative juices flow in your head. So how does that work? What is your thought process behind your creativity?
It's, see, I can't really say that it's only about creativity because fashion is evolving so much and it's now very seriously becoming an industry, becoming a business.
Yes.
So you can't just be creative and have one runway collection and not generate a certain amount of media mileage out of it or generate the right kind of sales reports. So it's a lot of things coming together, but the creative angle is the reason why I feel that's my lifeline. That's what keeps me going and sort of keeps me stimulated.
So if I were to ask you, what exactly is your inspiration? Does nature inspire you, or watching a movie, or listening to a song perhaps, or a very interesting conversation with a friend?
No, my inspirations are fairly visual. So I can't really say, I would find inspiration in a lot of textiles or maybe in certain forms of art. I felt that this collection that I did came together very well because our inspiration was Islamic jalis and Islamic art and motifs. And I would make my research boards and call like 5 random people with certain aesthetics at least and ask them, this is what we're thinking of. What do you think? And if they would say, yeah, this is very Islamic, or this is Islamic architecture, that was, it was very motivating that I am going in the right direction. So lately a lot of inspirations come from print. Having done Parisa for so long, I'm looking at print much closer.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful, and we wish you all the very best. So, we heard about this very interesting venture that you have. We're going to be coming back to that question shortly. But coming to Munib Nawaz, now I must mention the fact that we work together as well. So, Munib, you've been there, you've done that. You have a lot of feathers in your cap. What keeps you going?
I think every day just brings out something new in the world, and sadly, every time you switch on the news channel, you see something that should not happen, and then as a retrospect to life, you want to create something that should happen. That's my general take on life, to create something out of the negativity that you see, to create something more positive. I think when I design clothes, when we all design clothes, I think that is probably a result or a consequence of everything that we see that is wrong in our society, that is wrongly represented in our society. And us as artists, besides the business element, I think we represent what should be more inculcated in our society rather than what is being depicted as the majority of our society. That's what keeps me going. The other thing is my music, man.
Your music,
Yes.
exactly. So he basically hosts a show on the radio, and it's called Tailor Made. And he talks about not just fashion, actually. He talks
I
about
hardly talk
the
about
society at large. He talks
I
about
don't talk
philosophy,
fashion.
talks about music, about background, about the history. So if I were to ask you that, how does your fashion sense link up with your music sense?
See, I think for me, music has always been the biggest inspiration. Music and art, primarily. It's not been, like she said, more visual. It's been always based in literature or based in music, because I feel like I'm better at converting one form of an art to another.
Right.
I take something that's more audio and convert that into a visual, or something again more literature based, because I've been reading since I was like, I don't know when, and I've been writing since I don't know, before I was born probably. So my first 2 books have already been done. I don't know when I'll probably let them out as soon as I die. But yeah, so for me it's always been about art and conversion of one form of an art to another. Radio show is primarily about, like, we get hosts who are philanthropists, who are humanitarian, as you say. You've done a lot of work with me. We've done the Red Crescent Society work. We've done Women's Day work, and as much as people were like, why is this man hosting a Women's Day show? I think the men also need to be a part of what the women stand for, because unless the 50% of the population take up what the women are doing and promote that and be proud of what their women are doing.
Agreed.
Every man has a woman in his life, the mother, the sister, the wife, the friend even.
That's
and
true.
unless we take the step forward with the women, I don't think this country is going anywhere. And I think that has been one of the major reasons why, at large, the GDP hasn't grown over the past few years.
You know, men's accepting women is a very big, as a force, is a very big barrier to cross in Pakistan, which is much needed. Like he's saying, that it's support from men like you that can really help establish women.
That's true. And you know, even as far as your career is concerned, you know, being a woman, how has that right balance been for you? You know, if you were striking the right balance between your home and, of course, with your work. And tell us about the toughest challenges that you faced as well.
See, I feel that this is, for a woman, this is one of the most important decisions to take, because it's just understood and that housemakers or homemakers are better mothers and are better wives and are better daughter-in-laws. And I'm not defending my case, but I feel otherwise. I feel otherwise because I don't bother my husband with very expensive Gucci LV bags
to
to
judge,
go to,
really?
to go to kitty parties.
Right.
I don't need like a 5 Series Beamer because I have to be seen in certain places.
Right.
I am.
God forbid anybody wants that car, man.
Make it a 7 Series. Make it an Audi Q7.
Surprised. You would be surprised.
Yes, of course. This is. I mean, for me, the depiction of a smart woman is not how expensive her handbag is.
Exactly.
It's
That's
how much
true.
she has up here.
That's true.
And
Women of substance.
Women of substance, absolutely.
go.
And unfortunately, that's not the case. If I would look at some of my friends who are sitting at home, they're spending 5 hours in Orega or Salim Fabrics and doing their darzi runs, and I'm working those 5 hours. You know, so it basically amounts to the same. You come, the day is a very long day if you structure it right.
So that I completely agree with you. And if I were to ask you, what should be the first step that you should actually be taking to actually change the mindset of our society towards women, specifically when they're working? What would that be? How do you educate such people for that?
First and foremost, to change the mindset of women by and large, we need to educate women. Whether it is, over a period of time, I've seen the elders who thought that women who were independent were a negative force. Over a period of time, their mindset is changing. And I think that's a very big positive. And besides that, I think if you set the right precedents, where your children are achieving the grades that they're meant to achieve, where your home is looked after as a housemaker is supposed to. I feel women who sit at home never have good staff because they're just, you know, cribbing and constantly. Everyone needs their space to do what is to be done.
That
and if you give your staff the space, they will perform. So likewise, I feel it's just a matter of going out there, doing what you have to do, letting people do what they have to do.
That is true. So Munib, my question to you is that, it's a very regular question that, friends usually talk to each other about. For instance, if you ask one of your friends if he's getting married, okay, so what sort of a girl would you want to get married to? And he'd be like, probably if I'm going out with somebody, I'd want somebody who's well-dressed, somebody who's, who's like arm candy, but somebody who I want to settle down with. Has to be domesticated, has to be the sort of girl that I can actually go ahead and make me meet my mom and dad. So where does that come from, and how do you change that mindset?
See, in my case, I don't think that's what I hang around with, those kind of boys that talk.
But you do interact with such
I do, but I also
large.
feel that the society has come a long way, like she also mentioned. We're no longer that 25 years ago. Yes, we have come a long way. The boys who want the arm candy, if they're not, and the women have to realize, do they want to be the arm candy, or do they want to be the woman that they wake up with?
So
probably.
It works both
so
ways.
I don't think it's very easy for women to say it. We were having this discussion at some other forum as well, that women, feminists were there, and I was like, some women also brought up this topic, that women are no longer the subject of every sad thing that comes out of Pakistan. I think it has to come from the women. Like she said, precedents have to be set. Women have to stop taking themselves as arm candy. They have the right to go out and do their work. They have the right to not go out and do their work. Working does not make a woman stronger or less stronger. A woman is an entity. Napoleon said it. Everybody else knows about it. If you give an educated mother, he will give you an educated nation.
That's true.
So the thing is, it's not just about what they do, it's how they do it. It's about education. It's not just about literacy.
Yes.
Education is knowing the difference between right and wrong, and hopefully the ability to choose what is right. That is for me education, right? So if a woman is educated, she would know when a man is treating her to be like an arm candy or a wife. And when she sets the precedent that this is not on, then there is no man who can buy you a Gucci bag or an LV bag and say, be my arm candy.
Would you agree with that?
I feel that women, when they come into power posts, they end up transforming themselves into an unofficial, non-certified kind of a masculine role.
Okay.
I feel a woman's biggest trump card is being a woman. And just because you're the CEO of a brand and you're working with so many men, it doesn't mean that you have to be like the men.
Maybe it's more or less her defensive mode that she has on.
Yes, and I feel that is not your biggest defense, or your biggest, like I said, trump card is your feminine side.
Yeah, that's true.
So use it well. I'm not saying a wink here or a wink there, but I'm just saying, ek poise ke saath, come out with your grace and use your positives in a positive way, and I think that works very, very well. Let the man lead when it is his job to lead. It's when the woman at home wants to prove that she's bigger than the man because she's doing very well at work, that is when trouble starts. That's when people start to condemn women who are working.
That's a very interesting thought, actually, and I think that's a very interesting debate as well. And I think because all three of us can actually go on and on and on talking about this.
Yeah, I think let's move on to the greater good of what we can do for Pakistan.
No, but I think it's a very interesting debate as well. It has both sides to it, pros and cons. So moving on with our theme, of course, we were talking about a proactive and positive Pakistan. Have you seen the video called Udenge by Ali Zafar?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot about it.
Sahar, you have to watch the video. So Munib, we were talking about Ali Zafar earlier.
Yes.
In fact, we were talking to him as well. He was over on the show. And he was talking about the video. And he had a theory. The theory was that he felt that if celebrities have a platform, if they have the power, why do they not come together and raise their voices?
That's something that I've been particularly talking to a lot of my musician friends and celebrity friends, that in the global sense, everybody in Bollywood and Hollywood, every celebrity is attached to a cause.
That's true.
What happens, because I've been attached to a lot of causes on education and entrepreneurship, are two causes that I've personally taken up. But what I feel in Pakistan, everybody who's running an NGO or a cause wants to be the star themselves. And what happens is, because the clarity is not there in the transparency in the accounts is not there in any of these NGOs. When somebody approaches me, I was like, you know, bring out the accounts and let's go over your statements and let me see where because there's a lot of money that's being spent on the NGO sectors. You know, there's more money in the NGO sector than there is in the government offices. That's how big the NGO industry is. And none of these, what happens is because people are so scared and they themselves are so insipid in their approach that these guys just don't get attached, because if an NGO, like for instance you're running an NGO and you think, oh, why should I call Ali Zafar? I'm a much bigger star than Ali Zafar.
Of course.
I have more money, I have more donations, I have this, I have my contacts in the USAID and the MTV and UBC, and so why should I be bothered? But what we don't realize is that the cause is getting is suffered, because unless we come together, every person has a cause. It's just that these guys need to be connected. Hopefully, I'm setting up another platform. If Ali's doing that, I think I'll join him in his platform, because I want to connect these dots, because I work with the celebrities, I work with a lot of NGOs. And I think there's a major disconnect between the two. In fact, we were discussing that show for our other web thing as
Another one of our ventures, you know, Munib and I are always coming up with some crazy ideas. That's what we do. We come up with crazy ideas.
So that venture could also link up those two probabilities, and I think that's very, very important. She should take up a cause, I should take up a cause. If you can inspire 100 people.
And she is. We're going to be talking about that
we
as
will
well.
talk about that. I'm just saying there are people that we reach out to, and there are people who reach out to them. And the influence factor, like the Munib Nawaz philosophy is inspire better lifestyle. And every day, my mission and my team's mission is to make sure that we affect one person to do something better. Basic maths is, every day, if all Pakistanis start making 5 rupees more, that's $100 billion right there in less than 10 years for you.
Just 5 rupees every
5
day.
rupees every Pakistani, 200 million Pakistanis every day. 5 rupees, 5 rupees, everybody can make more if only they get off from their behinds and try to do something with that. The only issue is they need to be motivated and inspired, because if we see our political situation, if we see our TV, the only thing we do is sit on Facebook and complain. We need to stop doing that and stop disliking and liking somebody's statuses and do something about it.
There's no harm in liking or disliking.
No, I'm just saying we need to start inspiring people to know that there is a result out there.
Has to be concrete.
Yeah, because see, if I know if my effort is going to be converted into a physical, tangible product, garment at the end of the day, I will make sure that it is there.
Agreed.
If I know, I was working with 17,000 families in rural Sindh a couple of months ago for my relief project, and a lot of those people don't even know what a market is supposed to pay them, right? Because they're not educated. They feel that whatever they do is not going to get them anywhere in life. They'll just keep on doing what they're doing as their parents have been doing, and they will die doing the same. So they're not motivated to bring out that change.
See, the thing is, I feel that we people have a more positive take on things, because we have, our industry has taken birth in the last 10 to 15 years, which have been very tough on our country. So even though circumstances and odds were against us, we were rising in those times. And I see that the fashion or media or music, all these industries, to thrive even more in the next decade. So our take on the situation is very different, whereas people who have suffered because of the economic crisis, their take is going to be more pessimistic. You will sit amongst a lot of textile sates.
Because they've been disappointed.
Because they've been disappointed by the nation. But I'm the
it's not
product
because
of that depression that Pakistan's been through. And I feel very positively about this country. I'm a patriot. I believe in this country. I'm the product of this country.
She's an optimist.
Having said that, I will say that the country did not deliver. The government, at this point where the fashion industry is, I feel we should be given subsidies, we should be given more electricity, we should be given a lot of support for our labor who's the backbone. But so I feel, you know, the textile sector did suffer because of some mistakes on a larger picture. We suffered because
65% of your country is based on agriculture, 20% based on textiles. We still don't have textiles subsidies for the agricultural side. The government has never delivered in the US as well. you know, we've spent enough time in the US and to know that in the 19th century when the Labour government first came into play in the UK, they were like, oh, this government is only going to last 2 years. I know that because of Downton Abbey, not because of study.
I love that TV show, by the way. It's a great TV show.
So see, the thing is, we need to, there will always be idiots like me in the country, and not idiot, but somebody who's more smarter than me, who makes more money than I do.
I would vouch for that.
Yeah, so there will be people like her, and you know, there are artists who protect what is ours and project what should be projected.
I think that's a very interesting debate. And moving on to Sahar now. So Sahar, you know, you've helped out a lot of women if you talk about the rural areas that Munib was talking about. Tell us more about that.
Well, this started some time back. I would say I did projects with AHAN, which is Ek Hunar Ek Nagar. It's a semi-government organization working towards rural empowerment and revival of craft.
Wonderful.
So the first fashion week that I did, it had all embroideries of southern Punjab, and the reviews were very good. And
How
I
beautiful
feel
is that?
happy about it because you're getting embroideries done from women from various parts of the country. And that is where my sort of interest was triggered. Ahan supported it a lot. But then I realized my limitation, that I'm selling out of a small studio. How much business can I give these women? 5 pieces, 10 pieces, 100 pieces, 20 pieces, not enough for them to sustain and to become their bread and butter.
True.
And my career was evolving, and then this lawn mania started rising, and so that's when I connected with Chenwan and Parisa. So for the 3 years that I was the creative director for Parisa, I ensured that there was certain elements of embroidery or various elements where women could be engaged. And women in my studio, at least, are a very serious part of our workforce. The problem is that there are clusters where embroidery is being worked on, and those clusters are not very developed. So when you're doing a project of of Parisa and Chenwan scale, where we're talking very serious business, you need developed clusters, you need reliable manpower, where they won't say that my child isn't well, so I'm not doing your work. So we had to build up that kind of infrastructure, and all those embroideries did sell out of Chenwan. It was a bit of a challenge to begin with, when I had to tell them that, you know, the embroidery is not coming off the machine and into the packet. The embroidery is coming off the machine, then we're doing a little bit with women in villages, calling it back, and then doing a quality check, and then, you know, so they were, they didn't understand, but if the sales were fine, they eventually give you the liberty to do what you want.
That sounds wonderful. So tell us more about your own brand now. This is something we've just heard recently.
This is something I feel very excited about, because Sai was always meant to be a design cell. It was a small studio where anyone could come for a cup of coffee and just order clothes. But then after a certain while, having done so much of the Chenwan work, my mindset, my vision had broadened, and I couldn't, it used to get a bit taxing to entertain every client.
True.
And I feel that the past decade was the decade of designers, and the next decade is the decade of brands. So any designers who sort of transform themselves from a designer into a brand will be the ones benefiting the most, because as we may have noticed that retail is becoming a strong element in Pakistan, and fashion being the backbone now, it's taken the position of textile. Fashion is the next big thing. People love to go to malls. People love to go to various stores.
But they love shopping.
Shopping is therapy. So, you know, that's what we're trying to do here.
Online shopping, they have all these discount cards.
Right. So that's what I perceived, that I did the lawn, but after a certain saturation, I felt lawn is it's a capped product. You can only do so much, you know. There's the lehrata hua chiffon ka dupatta, and so, and I'm a fashion person. I don't want limits. I don't want to be working just on cotton. I don't want to be doing just rotary printing. I want to do anything that's fashionable.
Has to be versatility there.
Yeah, anything that's fashion, anything that it conforms to Pakistani culture, society, and its clothing, and it's affordable. So Chenwan and I came up with this one arrangement where my clothing will be available from Chenwan stores under Saharatif.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds great. So you visit any store Chen1's? Any
Well,
store?
the thing is that this is my project.
Okay.
It's not Chen1's project. I'm not paid for it. They don't dictate design terms. They don't support in marketing. It's entirely my project.
Okay.
Chen1 at the moment, if I'm correct, I think they have about 30 to 32, 33 stores, and they are expanding to 40.
Right.
So I don't have the kind of, if I can be honest, I don't have the kind of money to supply to 40 stores. So I'm just looking at the...
You're looking for investments?
That's a very subtle way of putting it.
Yes, you bring them
never
on.
know.
Yes, people,
Hint for everybody who wants to invest.
So just send me a business proposal, please.
Yeah, if this is a winning horse, this is what you need to put your money to. Yeah. No, but basically I'm looking at targeting maybe the top 8-10 stores for the product. Some products are actually maybe too fashionable to go to smaller cities where people still want to wear longer shirts.
That's true.
And, you know, so I have a product mix where it caters to the entire. There'll be clothes for you and me. There'll be clothes for people who maybe want to go to a party tonight.
So something for everyone. I think that party tonight, probably yes.
No, Munib, we need you to get into Chen1 to do that.
She's talking about you because she mentions somebody wants to go to a party tonight.
Yes, so that's for your wife.
I'm probably going to be, for my wife.
He seems to be in a bit of a hurry, so I think you might have something for him ready-made and tailor-made. Yeah. So,
but having said that, he's right. Menswear is a very big market. Untapped, very big market.
Yes, underserved, not untapped, underserved. Yes. But I think this is where we need to be in terms of the country in itself. If you look at your neighboring countries, that's how they've branded themselves. And we are talking about branding, and branding is value addition. When our textile sector starts to brand themselves, and so that they can dictate payments. You know, when you're a brand, what you're offering is something that no other person can offer. Whether you're Roberto Cavalli, whether you're Sahar
Because you have the power.
Exactly. You are a brand. You're not just selling a product. In Pakistan, we are selling $5 billion worth of textile, and that's not a single penny is earned out of a brand. It is directly the payment that a Gora sits somewhere and says, this is the amount of profit that your country or your company is viable for me.
True.
They will dictate your profitability as well.
True.
Hence, we end up being just laborers and producing nation. We're not a
Munib, that
branding
is
nation.
Changing now.
It is very slowly changing, sir. You and I have worked with a lot of these companies, and I know for a fact that these guys are, because they've made so much money being a producing nation. The ones who have made money have made a lot of it. The ones who haven't have probably disintegrated into nothingness or became an advisor to one of the government people. But what is the next 10 years, as she dictated, was this is going to be dictated by the people who add value, who become brands within themselves, as designers, as artists, as musicians, as hosts. You've added value to yourself from where you were a couple of years ago to where you are today. We need to keep on adding value to ourselves.
It has to
5
be
rupees every day, every human being. That's what we need to do. It's basic maths. We all need to add value to ourselves.
But when you just look at the past 3-4 years where, you know, fashion and textile have come together, I feel that branding has become stronger. I feel that production designers who were always just focusing at one successful runway show and then taking off for a holiday.
Even marketing has become so strong.
Yes, just look at the amount of online stores that are available. The
Very
amount of
solid.
online, you will not believe all these lawn collections are pre-sold.
Yeah,
your orders.
That's what I'm saying. It's great because that's what value addition. That's what brain and muscle come together.
Yeah.
Yes,
and that's what we do.
Right.
You know, she's a brain. She is asking for muscle to connect, and that's how human body works as well.
That's true.
Unless a brain and a muscle works, unless these two functions work together, you will not have productability. You will not have a product by the end of the day. So that's what our country needs. You need to stop. The people who have money need to stop thinking like only their son or their brother's son is the brain of the family.
Yeah.
They need to venture out.
No, but that's a really tough one for the Sates to
but that's
and to give you control.
That's what needs to happen for this country to work towards progression and positivity. If we are to take the next 10 years to where we should be, look at Turkey where it is today, look at Bangladesh, look at Vietnam for that matter.
Absolutely.
If you have the muscle, you need to stop thinking that your son is the only person who has the brain.
Exactly.
And
agreed.
I've been approached by a lot of people who I know, and they're like, you design for us, but please put my son's name on it because he wants to be a designer.
Right.
And I was really opposed to the idea back in the day. Now I'm like, let's make some money, man. Let's try. I have so many designs to sell. My brain's a design cell in itself.
True.
But the thing is, it's very, very important that the people who have money, they need to get out of their comfort zones and out of their family bubbles. And the designers need to open up to investments as well, because when an investment comes in, we are like, oh, he's going to control my creative process. Let it happen. That's what Gucci does. That's what Alexander McQueen did. That's what Stella McCartney did. That's what these guys do to grow a business into a $6 billion business. We're not going to create a ripple in any society with 10 crore rupees of sales. Seriously, that's nothing when you look at a more global approach to fashion.
From a broader point of view.
Roberto Cavalli and H&M collection was $2.2 billion. Where are we?
So I'm loving the conversation, but right now it's time for the giveaway segment. And are you ready, Sahar?
Not really.
Not really? Well, we don't really have a choice now, do we? So basically, now the deal is that we have a few questions for you. We have a giveaway section in which you can win yourself a goodie bag courtesy of Weekend World. So Munib, you have to basically be the deciding factor. And if you feel that she actually won this round, you need to applause. Okay? Done deal?
You won.
There you go. Okay, that's very sweet. That's very gentleman. You are being a gentleman, but you have to be very, very firm about this, okay? So, what's the first word that comes to your mind when the following words are mentioned? Fashion. Beep. Hate.
Huh?
Hate.
Heat.
Strength.
Women.
Pakistan.
Rising.
Women.
Strength.
Passion.
Music.
PTV.
Mustansar Hussain Tarar.
Radio.
Radio. Noor Jahan.
Munib Nawaz.
Menswear.
Hope.
Hope. Light.
Proactivity. Beep. Love.
Love. My children.
Sahar Atif.
Resilient.
Not bad. I think she definitely
think,
deserved
yeah.
I think
that
so
gift
too.
hamper. Good job.
Except for the fact that the first word, which is fashion, which is what she breathes.
I'm going to take it on.
I was warming up. I was warming up.
Hey, okay, just give the lady a second chance.
I
That's
did,
okay.
I did.
Yeah, I want to sit through
clapped.
yours.
Yeah.
I want to
I
sit
don't
through
get
yours
one of
now.
those.
That's okay, that's okay. She deserved the gift hamper,
Yeah,
so
you
that's
won,
okay.
man. You don't need to.
All right. So, Sahar, it was a pleasure to have you over on the show. And we'd love to have you over again as well. I hope that you enjoy the interview.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. It's great to see you here.
Thank you.
PTV is always so hospitable.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we were in conversation with Sahar Atif and, of course, Munib Nawaz as well. Up next, do stay tuned in to Weekend World at PTV World. My name is Sophie, because up next we shall be talking about music. We shall be talking about change in our society. And we would be inviting Haroon and Usman Sheikh over from ARG. Stay with us. Good evening, welcome back. You're watching Weekend World at PTV World. My name is Sophie, and earlier we were in conversation with Munib Nawaz and Sahar Atif. And it was a pleasure talking to Sahar Atif. It was an absolute pleasure. The woman is a woman of substance. And right now, again, we shall be in conversation with Munib Nawaz yet again. So Munib, we're talking about music, that's right?
Yes, I love music.
I think music is actually a fantastic entity when it comes to bridging gaps between entities, between institutions, between people, between countries. And right now we shall be in conversation with two very, very talented individuals who are part of a common band called ARG. We shall be in conversation with Haroon Sheikh and Usman Sheikh. Welcome to the show, boys. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you over on the show. I've been after their life, actually, because I'm a huge fan of the band. So how is ARG coming along, Haroon?
We're working on new songs, newer material.
I've heard that you guys, I heard that you guys disbanded. What was that all about?
It wasn't really a disbanding. It was sort of like, I had these projects that I wanted to do. And
actually, he got bored of what we were doing.
Yeah.
And the truth comes out.
Basically.
Which is
comes
great.
out.
I think when two musicians go separate ways, they produce two different music pieces, which is great. But as long as they can work together as well, I think there shouldn't be bad blood between them.
I think music is music, and as long as we're making music, we'll be all good. And
Yeah.
Actually, what happened was like we got into a lot of into that certain frame of mind where you're thinking, okay, what are the fans gonna like?
Yeah,
What are the people
that's
gonna think about?
That doesn't
You know,
sound like you guys.
It happens, you know, with time when you start making music.
actually a very natural curve for any musician who's
Yeah.
working in the industry to follow.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, there's the jazz musicians who I absolutely love. I grew up listening to jazz. But, you know, when you play 40,000 notes for 4 people versus a couple of notes for 40,000 people, you can get really confused into what to follow and what to do. And I think we busted out of our follower mind frames and started leading the situation. And I think that's what we needed.
Yeah, we needed that break, I think.
Yeah.
Even though I hated him for it, but
Yeah.
you know, it was important
much
because
needed.
it helped me like find myself, like my music. Because before that, we were like collaborating on everything that we
Yeah,
were doing.
pretty much
and
everything,
all
yeah.
that time that he was like busy with Basement.
Nescafe Basement.
Yeah, and which turned out to be pretty good for him and the band too, because the
Yeah.
second season had our song featured in it. So,
Yeah.
but like meanwhile, I was like writing songs and like producing other people. Then I got bored of producing other people, and I stopped doing that, and I focused on my songs. And now we're like a couple days ago, we just
Yeah.
decided, okay, this is not, we're not happy.
Yeah, we
you know,
just
in our own
realized,
thing.
you know, we're just jamming together, just playing guitar together. We were like, you know, this feels right.
I love how they come up
Feels
with
right.
ideas.
When something doesn't quite sound right, even though you might have rehearsed the idea 1,000 times in your head. I remember this happens when we jammed, when I jammed with Basement. You may have an idea, you might write it down and come home with the idea, like I have this. But if it doesn't feel right, forget about it.
I know, it's very different when it's practical.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Basement now, tell us how has the Nescafe Basement Season 3 shaped up?
Well, it's been wonderful. The response has been amazing. And considering the countless hours of jam time that we've put, you know, just preparing the songs, because Basement is made very differently. It's made very much how a band makes its songs, except none of the musicians, like some people, hardly know each other from before. You know, I knew some of the people who were continuing like me from season 2, and the rest I had heard of and met a couple of times. But when you start jamming and making music, and when the comedy of the jam room, the entity that is the jam room, ensues, you know, you just build this chemistry, and it worked out for us.
That's
Definitely
brilliant.
did.
That's brilliant. No, you know, I was just telling all these guys earlier as well, you know, off the record, the Larger Than Life is actually one song that it was actually one of my personal favorite tracks. So moving on, again, if you talk about ARG, I'm a huge fan of ARG. It's very apparent as well. I love your music. And tell me what's happening with ARG these days. It's been a while that I haven't really heard any new single.
We're working on 3 music videos
Yeah.
currently. 3 new singles. There's one called Khalish. There's another one called Yar Dadi Ishq Atish. You know
Of course.
the famous one.
It was performed in Coke Studio a lot of times as well.
Yeah, we're coming up with our own version.
Our own version of it.
And
Sounds
there's another
fantastic.
song that I haven't named, but it's an English number.
Okay.
Let me know if you guys need any styling help, man.
There you go. You're all set. See, this is what we're talking about, marketing in 2015.
That is so cool of you, man.
Anytime, man.
Cheers, appreciate it.
You know where to come as far as TV and radio is concerned. Look at us. I mean, self-promotion, shameless self-promotion.
No,
Munib,
I'm helping them
I've
out,
asked the
man.
guy a
I've
question.
done 140
Everybody's doing
music.
it, man. We're like, we're on, don't kid yourself. We're all on Facebook all the time, you know.
Exactly.
Updating statuses or
Yeah.
selfies and whatnot. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing
We're
it.
the
That's-
selfie generation, so we just got to
Might
stick
as well,
with it.
Exactly.
Might as well do what
I
we're good
wouldn't,
at.
I wouldn't choose to do that. Like I've
Yeah.
done.
It's
twice.
not your cup of
Yeah.
tea.
I've done twice. I'd admit, but it's not my thing.
Hence
you
their
know,
fourth
like,
Canadi.
it's a little too, you know. I know, narcissistic.
All right, all right. So, well, I have a question for you guys because, you know, we have a theme on the show tonight. We're talking about proactivity and positivity. So if I were to ask you a question, both of you, that what should be that one step that everyone should be taking in order to become more proactive and more positive in Pakistan, specifically when it comes to music, what would your take be?
I think that considering the current situation and everything that we're in currently, I think the proactive and the positive part of the music industry is that finally the brands are like beginning to recognize that these young people, you know, have potential, and you know they can back them up to, you know, support their brand, as well as, you know, as a result, you know, like give some people some, you know, limelight. Put them on TV. That's a good side of music these days. But what else is good?
I think that sums it up.
Yeah, that's a good point. But
That's a great point.
What brought about the music revolution was the fact that the musicians, that's almost like almost, don't mind me saying that, that's a sad statement to make, because I've been through the time when music was music and brands ran after musicians. Now what is happening is the direct opposite. The musicians are running after the brands for promotion. Music has to be so big and so larger than life that people should want it, people should want to see it, people should want to hear it, and the brands should know that, you know, back in the day when Noori came around with their thing, Fusion came around, EP came around, all these guys, they made music. They did not make it for brands. They made it for music.
And the brands
hence those brands followed them, and everybody from that generation is now branded.
True that, true that. But the thing is, we need to realize that we're currently, when they came, like Noori and all these people came, there was a gap. And that gap needed to be filled. Right now, there is a gap, but the sad part is that somebody needs to realize the potential of these musicians and start spending some money into this. Right?
I disagree.
The thing is that we're in a state of a transition, and we as musicians need to understand that we need to understand that we're at a point that this time, you know, we need to wait it out, you know, do our own thing. And this will pass. I'm like, my personal guess, just out of observation and, you know, just observing trends around the world and everything, I think 2020, 2022, we'd be seeing a much, much better position for musicians and any industry.
Well, hopefully, hopefully.
And here's
amen to that. Amen to that. Definitely. That sums it up for sure. So on that note, let's hear something from you guys.
आंखों में जो आंसू तेरे मन की हर एक ख्वाहिश लिए है सुनो ना है क्यों बता साजिशों से सिमट के इन रास्तों पे भटक के इन ख्वाहिशों से लिपट के रोया है क्यों बता सब कुछ तेरे हाथ में है ये नफरत तेरी जात में है क्यों है तन्हा तू क्यों खड़ा है रोके ये जहां बुला के चल दे तू भी दुनिया
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you, Usman and Harun, for coming down. We were talking about music, we were talking about fashion, we were talking about integrity, we were talking about our society, and that is exactly the point of Weekend World at PTV World as well. Together, we all can make a difference. On that note, have a great night, have a fantastic weekend. Inshallah, we'll catch you guys next week. Bye-bye.